under the lights here this evening. Gonna be a good one as I'm Seth Cole alongside of Ross Brockman. And Ross, as we look down around that cut line, that 10th in the standings area, there's about 8 drivers that still have a mathematical shot of pointing their way up into the top 10 between now and next week. But the consistency has to start tonight if they're going to have a mathematical shot in next week's regular season finale.
I feel like Phoenix is a race, like, you kind of a little bit of a unknown as far as like what type of race it could be. It could be one of survival. We've seen that where some, smaller short tracks can be a moment where you need to make sure that you survive the carnage. But I also could see us go, the entire race green flag tonight. This is a track that is wide in the corners, so you have some options to spread out a little bit. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what some of these contenders try to do, if there is the survival side, or if it's attack the track and try to get that track position early, because it might be tough to keep it if we go green.
As you said, this track very spacious. We'll have to see if the nighttime conditions cool the track down just a little bit. We are in Arizona, so it's probably still bloody hot there, but with that maybe potential added grip, we may see a lot of multi-groove racing. There are also some track limits. We'll document that here in just a little bit. But Ashton Lawson gets the pole position here tonight, and he's going to be on the front row with the defending champion, Hunter Madalinas.
Yeah, and starting third and fourth, we have a few drivers that are known to run up front most weeks, with Jared Darling in the 1 truck and Nathan Jump to his right in the 11 truck.
Former winner on the season, Jared Duda, going to be back in row 3 alongside of Brett Malone, his best qualifying effort so far this season.
One of our championship contenders, Christian Peterson, brings the 71 truck to 7th in qualifying, and alongside him is the 6 of Jackson Sims.
Robin Durr going to roll off on the inside of row number 5. Elliot Henderson, who's formerly gone to victory lane, sitting 2nd in the point standings, will complete the top 10.
Starting 11th is the 56 of Matthew Weeks, our winner last week, actually, in Texas. And then to his right, the 18 of Matthew Durr.
Row 7's going to find the 40 of Nicholas Caressel, and to his outside, the 73 of Kyle Cooper.
Starting in 15th, you have the 5 of Brent Kingcott, and starting in 16th, the 85 of Cy Jackson.
Our Daytona winner, Spencer Owens, going to start pretty deep in the field. He'll roll off 17th. Alongside of him, the 63 of Eric Kemp.
Starting in 19th, we have the 38 of Nathan Nixon, and then rounding out the top 20 starters is the 49 of Shane Neiswanger.
Back in the 11th row is going to be the 41 of Justin Mons. Michael Sensi, one of those drivers we were talking about, can point his way up in the top 10. Needs to start tonight deep in the field, 20 seconds where he'll roll off.
We have 23rd, Josh Robin, 24th, Aiden DuPont, Hunter Brittle, Rod Fosnow, Travis Hanby, Trey Bartow, and James Shiflett, our 29th starter.
29 drivers here this evening, gearing up for what should be a good one. 170 circuits await these drivers under the lights in Avondale, Arizona. Green flag ready to wave, and we're racing here tonight at Phoenix. You talked about that multi-groove. We've got them down along that yellow line, some of them almost up to the wall as they entered into 1 and 2. Maybe a little high there for a couple of drivers, brushing the wall on the back straightaway, but using every piece of this racetrack.
And Hunter Madalinas up on the outside of Ashton Lawson was able to grab the lead after just basically kind of running that middle lane through 1 and 2, and now back to the bottom and pulling away as Darling and Lawson will battle for second here.
Been a very up and down season for Hunter Madalinas. He has gone to victory lane formerly this season, but that was all the way back near the end of May at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. The defending champion comes into this race 9th in points, only 1 point above 10th in the standings, which is going to be that cut line when we conclude next week, I should say, at Auto Club.
And some of these drivers just kind of getting their position early. I see Peterson already moved up a couple positions, battling to the outside of Nathan Jump here. You'll see a couple trucks maybe bouncing off the wall off of turn 2. That happens here. It's so easy, especially when you're racing side by side like most of these drivers are in the back half of the pack right now.
Saw for a brief moment, our camera was focused on third place, that number 1 Casey's truck of Jared Darling. Only twice has the Great Lakes Racing Truck Series come to this venue. One of the former winners at this racetrack is that machine right there. Can he get it done here tonight? He's been really close numerous times this season of being able to get that victory. He's just come up just a little short in the closing stages. Maybe tonight's the night with that prior experience in victory lane.
Yeah, and I feel like, Jared would probably say that, like, he's had a lot of moments this year where, just like he's doing now, where he, qualifies up front and runs up front, and then something maybe happens middle of the race that has kind of taken him out of contention, or at least pulled him back from competing in the end. So I think that's the key tonight, is just executing and staying up there, because obviously right now he looks fast. He's closing up the gap that Madalinas and Lawson kind of built on him already, and staying with those guys.
37 here. Elliot Henderson mentioned he comes into this race second in points. His biggest points gain week was when he went to victory lane a couple of weeks ago at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. Since then, he's been able to maintain second in the standings, and he's looking here tonight to eat into the points lead. Christian Peterson, this last 2 or 3 races, has been able to extend the points lead. There was a span of time, 4 or 5 weeks, where it was a dogfight between Matthew Weeks and Christian Peterson. There were single digits separating them each and every week. Now there's been a bit of a cushion that Christian Peterson's been able to build. Elliot Henderson would like to close up that gap here before the end of the regular season.
Just been super consistent lately. We got that, Elliott was able to get that win at Atlanta a few weeks ago, and that probably, to top off all that consistency, to be able to slowly move his way up, and just being smart, and ultimately just finishing these races, as one of the, top 10 drivers. That's what you got to do, especially in this this format where, you want to be one of those top 10 to make the, so-called chase for this playoff.
Riding on board with Spencer Owens in the 23, the Lockheed Martin machine, looking ahead at Matthew Weeks. Of course, Owens, former winner at Daytona, comes into this race third in points, only 33 points out of the points lead. Matthew Weeks, the most recent driver to go to victory lane, currently sits fourth in points, so 2 drivers just outside of the top 10 trying to work their way in. We've kind of seen this be an MO of both of them, though, where they've been really good on the long run. So we'll keep an eye on where they're at right now. We'll check in a little bit later, see as these tires start to wear down, the field spaces out a little bit, if we see them eventually make their way up into the top 5.
It's just something that Weeks has done such a great job. I think the biggest problem, if he has these moments of right now where we're 10 laps in here, it's a pretty clean race so far. That probably plays right into his hand, where then you're going to have a chance at a long run, and that's where a guy like him is able to succeed. So he's got to love this right now. It's if you save your tires and then you just get all these short runs, then next thing you know you're only losing positions. So.
You'll notice one name not in the field here tonight. That's the 24 of Tony Manji. We didn't see him last time out as well at Texas. As a result, he dropped outside of the top 10 in points. He will continue to free fall through the standings. Looking at that bright green and black number 5 there, Brent Kincott. He's the driver that we're going to be kind of keeping an eye on here tonight and next week, because he would be the next driver just below the cut line trying to get in. If my math is correct, he is 37 points below the cut line, 10th in the stands, which currently is occupied by Zachary Henry, who is also not in the field here tonight. So a big opportunity for Brent Kincott to gain some points here tonight, close up that gap to the cut line, and put himself in a good position when we get to Auto Club next week.
And I ran in this league for many years, and there's a lot of times where you always kind of, wondered who's in the race, and you're looking at it like, the best thing for you to do is go out there and get a good finish, and then after the race, maybe you see like, oh, I gained a bunch because I didn't even realize that somebody was not here tonight. So that's obviously showing up is the only way to get points, and then from there to maximize points. Of course, it's about a great finish. As we see Nathan Jump here battling with Duda side by side. Through the dogleg. I keep seeing a lot of these drivers cut that dogleg. I think that's kind of the way to go to make it through that straightaway.
Yeah, it's kind of a catch-22, right? Because it can gain you about 2 to 3/10 of a second if you cut that dog leg, but then you also have a rather shallow entry in preparing for turn 1. So if you've got a car that can really rotate the bottom, then that is certainly a venue that you can utilize to your advantage. Talking about Nathan Jump, we've mentioned Brent Kincott. We also will be talking about Matthew Durr, Nicholas Caressel, Michael Sensi, and the aforementioned Nathan Jump. These are drivers that coming into tonight are separated by only 11 points, from 12th down to 15th, a tie for 15th in the standings. Any one of those drivers mentioned could put together 2 consistent runs between tonight and next week at Auto Club and could snipe themselves a last-minute spot in the top 10 in points and be fighting for the championship in 3 weeks' time.
See back up front, the Christian Peterson has closed in on our top 3 here. I see Madeline's kind of jumped out to a pretty big lead, and then Lawson and Darling were able to catch up to him, and now it seems Peterson is catching up to all 4 of them. So just maybe a matter of who is able to get out and use up some of their stuff early to get away, and now Peterson closing back in. I mean, Christian in that 71, he's up 3 positions, continuing to be fast here. So definitely doing a great job of using his stuff right now, but also not falling off as far as tire wear, it seems.
2-time winner on the season, one of 3 drivers that has gone to victory lane multiple times this season. Matthew Weeks added his name to the list last time out at Texas, and Daniel Nanny with 4 wins on the season as well on a part-time schedule. One of the great things I loved with one of the camera shots we had there a couple of laps ago as they were making their way here through 1 and 2, you talked about the spaciousness of this racetrack, specifically over here in the lower banked 1 and 2. We ended up seeing 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, 3 trucks, 3 entirely different lines as they're trying to get that clean air to the nose to be able to turn through the center.
And it's 2 very different corners, even though they kind of look the same, and the way you drive them sometimes. And yeah, it's definitely somewhat of a driver's track the last handful of years. You can kind of use some different lanes, especially with this truck that's a little bit slower. You want to be able to keep the momentum up in the corners, and that's the best way to do that is to maybe move up the track. It seems down here they're really running the bottom a lot just because it's so wide off of exit. You can kind of make that work, and then down here in 1 and 2 you really can do anything as far as entry to set your exit up, especially late in the run with old tires.
Lap 20 on the board. We've been green since the start. Everybody's done a great job of getting themselves all spaced out after we had that double wide and 3 wide all the way through the field, the beginning stages of this race. Now, is it more a matter of battling the racetrack, or is it setting up the passes here, trying to work your way to the front 1 position at a time? Because it kind of seems like everybody's just kind of taking a step back here and now we're settling in for the long run.
Yeah, and it probably takes a couple laps once you get going to really set up a pass. So I think that's the toughest part, is even if you wanted to move up, as it looks like maybe the 23 of Owens there got the wall pretty good there off of 2 there. But I think these drivers, you get to a point where you're like, man, it's going to take me 5 or 6 laps to pass somebody, and by that time everybody else in front of us is pulling away. So sometimes maybe it's just a riding a little bit here, saving your stuff, and hoping that there'll be a bigger discrepancy in your tires compared to your competitors. As you see the 5 here of Kincott just trying the bottom, just trying to get a little bit more air maybe as he's trying to pass Durr.
And right now is an ongoing battle for 12th place, just a little outside of the top 10. And yeah, to your point, Phoenix isn't considered a short track, but it races a lot like it in some ways. And what you just touched on there, it's kind of similar to a Richmond, like a Dover. If you can gain hundredths of a second on the driver in front of you, that is important in being able to set up a pass. You're not going to close up on somebody by a 1/10 of a second like you might maybe at a 1.5 mile or a 2-mile racetrack like Auto Club that we're going to next week. It is a slow, painstaking process to first set up a pass on a driver and then to try to even complete said passes. We see the multiple different lanes here. There's plenty of opportunity for the driver that you're trying to pass to be able to run a defensive line against you and hold you off for multiple laps.
We see our leaders here. I know Madelinas and Ashton Lawson, These two have had many battles, and I think you mentioned it. You know, I think if Lawson gets an opportunity to pass Madalenas here, it's one of those things that you know, Hunter's good at knowing where to go, where to put his truck to maybe make it a little tougher on you. But also that 7 truck is he's usually pretty good at just running the same line and executing it just perfectly through the entire run. That's something that he's so good at. Is Lawson slowly but surely is closing in on.
You got to think both these drivers are hungry here tonight for a victory. Not as much to lock themselves up into the playoff. Ashton Lawson's currently running well in the standings, currently sitting a solid 5th. We mentioned about Hunter Madalenas. He's 9th in points, but there is a bit of a gap between himself and that cut line, specifically the drivers below the cut line. But we mentioned how long it's been since Hunter Madalenas has gone to victory lane. He comes into this season defending champion, and Ashton Lawson has been in the conversation for checkered flags multiple times this season. You go back to Watkins Glen, it was really him and Daniel Nanny. He got involved in an incident off the final corner. We go to Pocono. He started second, finished second. He was in the conversation for that one. 1 week later, he was in the conversation at Martinsville. He's been there. He's just not been able to be that truck out in front when the white flag waves.
Sure, and he's a guy that definitely wants to grab, you know, a win here at some point, especially if you could do it before the playoffs. I think that's always a, you know, the competition maybe even steps up a little bit during the playoffs. So whether you're a playoff driver or not, it maybe sometimes is a little tougher to win in those playoffs. So maybe get that win out of the way in the regular season and hope that you can you know, bring that momentum into the playoffs. You see Lawson maybe entering just a little bit lower there. He maybe clipped the apron a little bit, but just trying to get a little bit lower maybe than Madalenas just on entry. And yeah, you just gotta be careful. It's really easy down in 3 and 4 down there to clip the apron, and it just kind of sends your truck right up the hill. Where down here, the apron, you can use it because it's pretty much the same banking as the rest of the racetrack.
You talk about there getting those left side down here into 3 and 4 on the apron and sends the car up the hill. Is there any possibility as well, if you're able to get those left sides down in the paint just enough, it kind of starts the back end sliding a little bit, allows the truck to get pointed off the corner? Is there like some way you can use that apron to your advantage to allow the truck to turn in the center?
Probably these guys that are way better than I am, but yeah, I think there's potential with that. I definitely feel that, you know, down in 1 and 2 at times where you can kind of use the apron to kind of turn your truck. Like I said, you know, it's a slower vehicle, so you want to keep the momentum up, and if you can, you know, force your truck to turn while keeping, you know, your foot on the gas, that's just another tool that you have. If these drivers can take advantage of that, there's something there potentially.
Keeping an eye on lap times here, and Ashton Lawson, he's been about 100th faster every single lap here. He seems to lose a little bit more ground down here into 3 and 4, gains a lot of it back in 1 and 2. One thing that I have noticed, and you pointed it out, he's been running lower on the racetrack there, and Hunter Madalenas has been pretty dedicated to keeping his truck right down there on the bottom. Does Ashton have to start searching around here a little bit? Because every time that he's running behind Hunter Madalenas through these set of corners, we've seen drivers already go up and brush the outside wall with that lack of turnability, with the dirty air on the nose. He's having to deal with that every single time they exit out of a corner, which I would have to assume is just making his truck tighter and tighter every time he goes back to the throttle.
Yeah, I mean, just mirroring the lap times right now. So it's even if he's, you know, potentially just riding in this position, he's still going quick. He's still at least maintaining with Madalenas here. You wonder how much it potentially is wearing his stuff out, just being right in the wake of that 7 truck. But yeah, as long as he could stay, you know, in tow here, I think that's probably his goal. He's moved back a little bit. This last lap was probably going to be a couple tenths slower this last lap, as we were highlighting him there a bit. But yeah, these two have been pretty much consistently faster the last handful of laps than Peterson and Darling, and have able to leg out about a second gap between them.
A shout out to the 29 of Brent Malone. We saw him qualify his best qualifying effort here tonight inside of the top 10, and he's hanging there in that 9th position. His best run so far this season, his 4th start on the season. So far, 12th place, his best finish, and that was back at Martinsville. His other 2 finishes outside of the top 15 at Atlanta and Worldwide Technology Raceway. So looking strong here tonight. Had a good number, as mentioned, at Martinsville, so maybe the maybe the lower banked, heavy braking, short track style cornered racetracks are his forte, and he's showing that off here as he's trying to hold off the advances of Jackson Sims, and there's Spencer Owens trying to break his way up into the top 10.
Owen was able to qualify up in the top 10 and just maintaining his spot here. Just maybe lost a couple spots early, but ultimately just kind of staying where he needs to be as far as track position here with a long green flag run to start this race.
So now with this long green flag run, we might have to start entertaining the idea of pit strategy for these drivers here tonight. Looking at their current laps to their best laps, and it's a huge difference. The leaders themselves are running almost a second and 2/10 slower than the fastest laps they put down at the beginning of this race. So there is definitely time to be gained if you go with the undercut strategy. The problem is, though, if we end up having a caution and you've been to pit road, you are guaranteed, doesn't matter where you run the field, you're guaranteed to at least lose one lap, and you may end up finding that caution be very untimely for you, and you lose all that track position that you had prior to coming to pit road. So how much gambling do we end up seeing here on this first pit stop cycle?
Yeah, I think it's best to run as long as you can, just because that potential caution could ruin your night, and the other side to that is because it's not a very big track and you have potential to go potentially almost 2 laps down when you make your pit stop. You're going to have fresh tires and be driving through kind of a minefield of the drivers that are maybe going to try to run this long, and so are other drivers. So if you're hoping for not having a caution, having trucks out there that are almost a second or more faster, passing trucks that are slower, that's a great opportunity for a caution to come out. So I think that the idea of running as long as you can is probably the first strategy here on this first green flag pit stop. And if we get through it all the way through, then maybe you're open to trying something on the second run through the pits.
Nicholas Caressel, Robin Durr. This is the battle right now for the 13th position with Eric Kemp looking on. Just moments ago, our camera was focused on the 73 of Kyle Cooper, the 38 of Nathan Nixon, 19th and 20th, making their debuts on the season here tonight at the Phoenix Raceway. As, whoa, near contact right there, major loose on the inside was Nicholas Caressel. Looks like we're starting to see that rear end grip going away on a number of these trucks.
Yeah, getting to the point where you probably you're anywhere from 10 to 20 laps away from that pit stop. I think these drivers, they want to get those tires early just because they are sliding around, as you see Weeks here to the inside of Nathan Jump, just slowly. Here comes Weeks. He's, started outside of the top 10, just outside of the top 10, now up to, I guess this would be a battle for 6th. So slowly moving his way up on the long run, as we typically see with that 56 truck.
It was when he got his first win of the series back at Atlanta. The worn out surface of the Atlanta Motor Speedway was one of the best on the long run in preserving those tires, and we're kind of seeing that again here tonight as he will move his way up into 6th. We've actually had an exchange for 4th as well. Jared Duda has gotten by Jared Darling, moving into the 4th spot. I was looking at his lap times, and he's had maybe some of the most consistent lap times here in terms of speed at this portion of the race, and he's ripping the top there in 1 and 2, so he may have found something right up there against the wall, and he's putting it to good use, making forward progress.
Yeah, and it looked like, Darling was able to jump up there with Madalinas and Lawson, and then he kind of just slowly moved back as Peterson also, teammate with Duda, really just doing a great job of maintaining lap time here and being fast from the start, but also not falling off as much as it has for Darling. So yeah, just kind of interesting how some of these drivers, the little bit of a rubber band feel that we get with some of these front runners as they go through a run here. They don't know how long it's going to be, so they don't know how much to save. But for those that saved their tires early, they're getting rewarded right now.
Hunter Madalinas continues to show the way. Ashton Lawson's not let him out of his sight, but there definitely is a lot more space between these two than there was even 15 laps ago. Ashton Lawson was about 2 to 3 truck lengths off his back bumper. The gap is now opened up to over a second As now you gotta wonder, is this a situation now if you're Ashton Lawson, you're looking at the lap times, you're seeing how much it's fallen off here. Obviously, you don't want to come to pit road a chunk of laps before Hunter Madalinas, maybe just 1 or 2 laps before he does. Try and take advantage of those fresh tires on the out lap and see if you can, if not close the gap back up between the two, maybe even leapfrog him and get your truck out in clean air.
Yeah, and potentially, if we are able to get through green flag pit stops, if you are the one that is able, if you're battling somebody like Madeline's and Lawson are for the first position, or if you're battling anywhere in the field for position with somebody, if you're able to get in a lap or two before and then jump in front of them, and then the caution comes out and both of you are kind of in the same spot, you might have gained a spot overall track position that way. So, especially if we were able to get all the way through and you don't have to worry about the caution coming out and putting you a lap down. So, there's that potential. I also think if we get through a green flag pit stop, then you're going to have to be, the second run of this race is going to be a little bit in lap traffic for these leaders. So if you're able to jump somebody by pitting a couple laps before them and we get through it, you could, potentially reward yourself with the track position before you get to the lap traffic and maybe, start to put some lappers between you and your competitors. So that's sometimes not a bad situation to be in when you're trying to lead and keep that track position.
Jared Darling starting to drift back a little bit more. Now Matthew Weeks closing up on him. Nathan Jump. As I looked back at the 2 previous starts at this racetrack in this series that Jared Darling ran, he led 38% of the laps that he completed in those 2 races, 115 laps out in front. He's yet to lead here tonight. We talked about track limits beginning of the night here. Now hopefully we won't have to talk about the restart track limits here if we can continue to trend green as we have. But if we end up having a round of green flag pit stops coming up, there are some track limits in concern of the front straightaway. Drivers are allowed to go down on the apron as we've seen them do here tonight, but they have been encouraged to stay up above the yellow line that indicates the pit road exit. You're going to see it right there, that yellow line, as it merges up with the yellow line across the apron to the racing surface. They are encouraged to stay to the right side of that, especially if we have green flag pit stops, because that is going to be the access lane that the drivers leaving pit lane will be using to merge back up into the race pack.
You pave a racetrack, everywhere you pave is a place to go. So, and they'll take it if they get that opportunity. So I don't, hopefully they give each other some room to get through potential green flag pit stops. I'm kind of looking at this number of 55. Lap 55 would basically kind of split this race into thirds. So you do it on 2 stops. I think everybody's looking at 2 stops here if it does go green. So I think, you got to get to lap 55 in order to not force yourself into a third pit stop here. So I think that might be a number here in the next couple laps where you maybe would see some people jump down to pit road.
Still battling here, mid-pack rear of the field. That was a pass right there for 19th. Josh Robin getting around the 38 of Nathan Nixon. Shows up as a 33 for us, but it will be a 38 on the ticker. Just behind them, you've got Justin Mons in the 41, Aiden DuPont there in the 00. All of these drivers still all kind of gridlocked, side-by-side racing here, middle of the pack. So while they're kind of spread out at the front of the field, it's absolute pandemonium back here.
Yeah, and just behind them, you have the 73 of Kyle Cooper and the 18 of Matthew Durr. Both of them started, probably almost 8 to 10 positions in front of these guys and just slowly moved back. I think they definitely are probably learned something on this first run as far as how much they're using up their stuff. So they, that just kind of packed this group together as some of these others, like DuPont and Mons here in front of them that are slowly moving up. They just kind of maybe all came together in the last 5 to 10 laps, and it's really bunched them up and kind of getting narrowed back down here and in single file, and except when they're down in the corner here in 1 and 2.
Mentioned about the fact that there are about, well, here we go. Here's a car coming to pit road. That is going to be Kyle Cooper in the 73, one of the first to maybe initialize this cycle of pit stops. We're on the lap 55 mark you were talking about, so going with splitting this race into thirds. But, I mentioned that there is about 6, 7, 8 drivers that mathematically still had a shot of pointing their way up into the top 10, but they had to have a good run tonight. Currently, would have a little bit concern for Aiden DuPont, for Hunter Brittle. They're currently outside of the top 20. You need a good run here tonight, and you need a good run next week at Auto Club to have a chance. We documented at the beginning of the season, it's not a win-you're-in system. This series, while it rewards race wins, absolutely, it more so rewards consistency week after week after week. And for some of these drivers, they've dug themselves into a little bit of a hole, and they're going to need consistent top 10s, if not top 5s, to be able to get out of it to still have a shot at battling for this championship.
It's just about creating some momentum here in the last few weeks to get as many points as possible. And you're probably, if you're any of these guys that are battling for those chase playoff spots, you're probably, this early part of this race, you're starting to maybe panic a little bit. You know, there's so many times where in these races, the first half of it, after a couple cautions, you could, you know, really strategy and stuff, really turn the race upside down. And next thing you know, a 20th place driver, you know, finds their way into the top 10. That can kind of be tougher when you have a green flag run going for a long time of this race. It's hard to gain, you know, make big jumps in the running order. So a lot of these drivers may be feeling a little bit of pressure as this race goes long here to start.
Saw a couple more trucks on pit road. That was the 85 of Sky Jackson, the 38 of Nathan Nixon. They've been joined by Rod Fastnell. More on pit road. Matthew Weeks has come to pit lane along with Elliot Henderson. Looks like Spencer Owens has also joined them.
Yeah, 3 trucks that I thought all pretty much solid on the long run here. Now being ones to come down to pit road early. So I think Owens did a great job of just moving forward early and then kind of maintaining. And obviously we've talked about Weeks and Henderson, both guys that run long. It looks like Weeks has got a problem. Yeah, it looks like maybe missed his pit box.
It's going to cost him a lot of valuable time. Will it for the multi-time winner, Matthew Weeks? It was interesting, those 3 drivers coming down pit road were 2nd, 3rd, 4th in the standing. So maybe thinking that, you know, we're pretty well secured of advancing into the playoffs. Maybe we try something a little bit different from the race leader here with this undercut strategy. But you saw Matthew Weeks with that error there. And while this isn't necessarily the toughest pit road to get onto, as I say that, now Brett Malone's got his hands completely full there on entry. But you kind of consider this racetrack is on a curve. Pit road's on a curve. It can be very easy if you've got one of those pit stalls around the corner to miss where your pit sign is at, which I think might have been the case there for Matthew Weeks.
Seems to be a lot easier too when you got other drivers around you. I know he was, you know, leading that group down, but it's still, you know, you're looking at the other drivers and you kind of, you know, have a little bit of a competition in your head, you know, when you come down to pit road. So you just want to make sure that you execute, and sometimes you maybe don't even, you know, realize that you drove by your pit box. So that's something that's tough to, you know, you don't really get a first look at it under caution tonight like you would, you know, some other races. So here comes Madalinas now down. Pit from the lead.
Yep, the floodgates have opened. You've got Jared Duda, Christian Peterson, Robin Durr, Aiden DuPont, Hunter Brittle all on pit road. We see the 8 of Josh Robin. He's coming back down pit road. He was hit with a speeding penalty leaving, so he's having to come in and serve that. Costly mistake there. We mentioned even on just a normal pit stop, you're almost guaranteed to lose a lap. You have to come down pit road for a speeding penalty. You're going to maybe lose that and a lot more.
Yeah, tough break for the 8 truck. You ultimately got to save that, you know, serve that penalty and try to get back out there and just hope for a caution to kind of reset your race and get you back in this. But see, Nicholas Kressel was able to run this a little bit long and pit here on the same lap as Madalinas. I think that'll be interesting just to see where he shakes out. Just a little bit fresher tires for a guy that's you know, just trying to stay in the top 10 or at least get to the top 10 here on the second run.
And the undercut is going to work for Ashton Lawson. He's taking the lead from Travis Hamby just up ahead here, as now he's getting by the 28 of James Shiflett. The undercut strategy is only about 2 laps in it, but getting that up-to-speed lap on the fresh tires has allowed him to leapfrog Hunter Madalinas. Now we'll have to see what Ashton Lawson's able to do with this track position. Will that 1 or 2 lap fresher tires for Madalinas allow him to reel the 26 back in? This is going to be an interesting battle because now the cat and mouse game has reversed.
Yeah, and I mentioned before those pit stops, if you are able to make the jump like you did Lawson here around Madalinas. Now he's got some lap traffic around him. He put the lap truck of Shiflet in between him right now, and that's just another obstacle as Madalinas tries to slowly use those couple lap fresher tires to reel him in.
I think you really got to consider the undercut strategy, because we're looking at the 73 of Cooper, the 85 of Sky Jackson. They all came to pit road. They were some of the first ones onto pit road. Look where they're at now. Cooper is just outside the top 10 and 12. Jackson is actually in the 10th position. These drivers gained a ton of track time here, at least on the front side of this green flag pit stop cycle. Now, they'll probably give some of it away as this run progresses, since their tires will wear a lot quicker than the other drivers around them. But if you're some of these guys up inside of the top 5, top 10, you gotta be probably looking around, noticing the chunk of ground these guys were able to gain, and maybe squirrel that away for the final pit stop of the night.
Yeah, and as we
got a spinner! Is that Travis Hamby, I believe? Hangs on to it, though. No caution going to wave. That inside retaining wall kind of saved his truck from going completely around, but problems there for the 3, as he will safely continue rolling here through 3 and 4. That could have very nearly been the first caution and bunched everybody back up here.
Yeah, definitely. We saw him run a little bit long. I think he was, farther back on track position and decided to run as far as he could. So maybe just fresh tires on, forgetting how potential, green the tires are, and got loose off the corner.
Travis Hanby had fallen a lap down during the green flag run. Stayed out a little bit longer before his pit stop. Currently scored -1 along with Rod Fasno, James Shiflett, Josh Robin, after having to make the pit stop after the speeding penalty, is currently 3 laps down to the leaders, but all 29 drivers are still running, 25 of them currently on the lead lap. As how about this dogfight going on here around the 20th position? You got Matthew Durr, Robin Durr, Nathan Nixon's in this group, Aiden DuPont, and I believe that's Trey Bartow back just behind them in the 82, who started shotgun to the field back in the final row.
Yeah, Nixon was one that came in a little bit earlier than these guys. So as you see, Robin Durr here to the inside, just a little bit fresher tires here, and pretty much everybody here on Nixon, was one of the drivers that pitted a little bit earlier on that run. So these guys just trying to use those fresh tires right now to get by them, but ultimately kind of giving each other room and slowly making their way through here.
Let's check in on the 56 of Matthew Weeks, coming off that victory last time out at Texas. Right now, he is in the 13th position. You look at the amount of time that most drivers spent on pit lane, somewhere between 46 to 48 seconds, with that overshooting the pit stall, having to throw it in reverse. 57 seconds, the amount of time he spent. He was up inside of the top 5 during the cycle of pit stops. He's now outside of the top 10. Bit of a mountain to climb here for the 56 truck. Going to have to try and work his way back up there into the top 5 once again. And now it's a difficult situation, right? Because we mentioned about him being one of the best in saving tires on the long run. Well, if you save at this point in time, you're probably not going to make a whole lot of forward progress until we start getting closer to the eve of the final pit stops. Is your hand forced right now to maybe be a little bit outside the comfort zone, be a little bit more aggressive to get up there at least into the conversation of top 10 again for that final pit stop to put you in the hunt for your 3rd win on the season?
Yeah, it's a tough spot to be in, because also now it looks like he's a good second behind the next position. So got to put some work in to get caught up to start gaining. As we see back up front, Madalinas is closed in on Lawson, now to the inside, trying to grab the lead.
Currently to his left rear quarter panel, going to use all that apron here on the front straightaway. Ooh, real close between the two of them here through 1 and 2. For Madalinas, he's getting the better drive into the corner, but maybe having a little difficulty with the truck to his outside, getting the rotation, getting back to the throttle through the center off. That's where Ashton Lawson is being able to stay alongside of him. Little slide up right there for Lawson, though, and Madalinas will clear. Not sure if maybe a little dirty air off the 3, the lap truck of Travis Hamby, played a part, but here's the crossover into 1. This is great battling for the race lead.
I think this is going to be a tough spot for Lawson. I give him a for effort for crossing them over and trying the inside down in 1 and 2, but you know that 7 truck with just a couple lap fresher tires up on that outside, it was going to be a pretty easy move to power around and take the lead. Now through 3 and 4, are able to build a little bit of a gap now here on Lawson. So I like the effort of pitting early for Lawson, but I bet this next 20 to 30 laps are going to be a long run here, and hoping that he can stay with Madalinas.
We saw Jared Darling during the course of that run start to fade back a little. He had drifted to around the 5th, 6th position. He'd gained a ton of that ground back, currently in 3rd place. As we're looking back here, a potential brewing battle for 6th position. That's where Nathan Jump is currently trying to hold off Elliot Henderson. Couple of drivers right now potentially in the conversation for playoff spots. Henderson's already in above the cut line, 2nd in the standings. This is a good run right now here for Nathan Jump, who is tied for 15th in points coming into tonight. Could be the first step towards maybe following up next week at Auto Club and finding himself above the cut line to battle for the championship.
He actually has a lap or 2 fresher tires than Henderson and Sims behind him here, so maybe just kind of saving his stuff, letting these guys get close but not close enough to make a pass, and hoping that he can make a run up into the top 5 later in this run here. So yeah, just surviving the second part of this run here will be the key for some of these guys up in the top 10.
I feel like we haven't given any love to Jackson Sims here tonight. He's been a top 10 truck all night long, currently holding down the 8th position, looking up ahead at this battle as that battle for 6th is going to make its way around the 4 of Rod Fast. Now Jackson coming into this race 8th in the point standings, solidly inside of the top 10 and making a clear case for himself to advance into the playoffs. There's going to be some scenarios here, Ross, when we eventually get into Auto Club where we're going to be able to say that this driver, they're already locked into the playoffs. No way mathematically they can fall outside of the top 10. And I feel like for a number of these drivers here tonight, like an Ashton Lawson, a Jared Darling, a Christian Peterson, Jump, Henderson, Sims, Owens, that's what the goal is here tonight. Build enough of a cushion, even if you don't come away with the victory, a solid run, build enough of a cushion that you mathematically can't fall out of the top 10 in points, and then all bets are off. You can do whatever you want, be as aggressive as you want to try and get that final win of the regular season when we head to the West Coast at Auto Club.
And I even heard a little bit in pre-race from Lawson, just in the driver chat, saying something about, I just got to finish 20-something tonight. And so it was on his mind. I imagine once he qualified up near, up on the pole, he probably was like, okay, well, maybe I got to go for the win tonight. Not even, we're in. We're going to make the show. So a chance to go for a win now for some of these drivers that are locked in, or at least have a big enough cushion, feeling comfortable here with this race and next week's race to finish it out.
10th place battle starting to brew here. That's Brett Malone still holding a solid run here tonight, trying to hold off the advances of Brent Kincott. It's going to be very interesting to see at the end of the night if Brent can continue to run where he's at or even make his way up into the top 10 in the finishing results, what his situation is going to look like going into Auto Club. He came into tonight 23 points below the cut line. That was Tony Manji, who's not in the field. He was also a total of 34 points below Zachary Henry, who is 10th in the standings there. Big opportunity here tonight with where he's running, garner those points with both the 12 and the 24 not in the field. I don't know mathematically, I don't necessarily know all the mathematics of points per position and whatnot, but if not in the 10th position in points, he will certainly be up in the conversation for next week. We kind of looked at the points coming in tonight, and it looked like for the most part, a lot of the drivers above the cut line are pretty safe, but there still are a couple of drivers that have a shot of sniping that 10th position, and Brent Kincott seems to be in the catbird seat.
Yeah, and ultimately, a couple, you mentioned Zach Henry, who's not racing tonight. He actually withdrew his points position with the admins just because he's not going to be able to compete full season. So that kind of maybe brought some new life to that cut line over the last week or so with these drivers that are outside of the top 10, to know that there's really kind of an extra position now. So yeah, it'll make next week very interesting. Guy we're looking at here, I see Kressel in that 40 truck. He was one of the last ones to hit pit road, lap 62, the same lap as Hunter Madalinas. We saw him kind of run as long as possible. it'll be interesting to see how far up he can move up here in 14th. I think he's potentially got a chance to crack the top 10 by the end of this run, just with the having the freshest tires of all these drivers in the mid pack here.
And Nicholas Caressel, he's come alive here second half of this regular season. Kind of struggled out at the gate, but once we ended up getting to around race 8, race 9, he has put together some really good, consistent finishes, and he's one of those drivers that's also in the conversation of still having a shot of pointing his way up into the top 10 in the point standings coming into tonight. He was a total of 43 points below that cut line and putting together a solid run right now in 14th. As you mentioned, a little bit better on tires, most of the drivers around him, so we'll see what he's able to do in the closing stages, as there's an exchange for third. Looks like Jared Darling again starting to free fall a little bit from third to fourth. That's Christian Peterson, the points leader, making his way around. And I'm not necessarily certain that this is a indication of Jared Darling struggling. Let's not forget, he's a former winner here at this racetrack in this series. This may be him already knowing what kind of pace he needs to run to be able to save those tires for the long run. We saw him gain on the pit stop. That could be little tidbits that he was able to take away from past races that he's applying here tonight. So may not be as much the case of him struggling, more the case that he's not pushing nearly as much as some of these other drivers that are making their way around him during the course of this run.
Sometimes you get good at a racetrack, and the only way that you're able to do it is maybe use up your tires, or maybe the only way you're good at a racetrack is you have to save. And for this one truck, maybe Darling, it's one of those things that he knows that his best option is to use his stuff up, try to get some track position early in a run, and maybe potentially the way cautions fall, that's where he if you continue to have short runs and you're good at that, maybe that's your play. But yeah, some of these drivers, throughout the top 10, there's a lot of different driving styles at a track like Phoenix here.
Ellie Henderson making his way around the 3 of Travis Hanby. That's going to allow Jackson Sims to maybe draw a bead on him. Ooh, little loose there off of turn 2 for the 37. This is a battle closing up for 7th place between these two. See Sims run a little bit lower there in 3 and 4, and Phoenix is such a unique racetrack. I mean, obviously it went through a reconfiguration where we currently see the start-finish line now used to actually be the back straightaway, this straight line straightaway that we're going to see them here making their way onto. This was originally the front straightaway. So if we took the numbers of the turns and reversed them, that's what the old configuration would be. And 2 entirely different, unique sets of corners. A little bit less banking, as you've mentioned, a lot more spacious over here in 1 and 2. A little bit more banking, a little bit more having to drag the brake and have to wait on the throttle when you go over into 3 and 4.
And some of these drivers. Now we got the 53 of Jared Duda slowly gaining on Jared Darling. We saw the battle of the Jareds that first run. I think we're going to see it again for this second run here, as that 53 just slowly gaining. A couple lap fresher tires than the one truck, so a little different this time as far as the tire life this run. So we'll see what the 53 is able to battle here for that 4th spot.
We are more than halfway home here tonight in the Arizona 170. The penultimate race of the regular season will be determining our playoff drivers next week at the Auto Club Speedway. It has been all Hunter Madalinas here tonight. Ashton Lawson was able to leapfrog him on the first cycle of pit stops, but it didn't take very long for Madalinas to make his way back around. He has been the Pied Piper here tonight in the desert as he is searching for his 2nd win on the season. And what a time it would be for him to get hot. We've talked about the up and down regular season he's had so far. It's going to probably be a little bit threatening to the rest of the playoff drivers if the defending champs start to find victory lane, starts to find this hot streak with the playoffs looming on the horizon.
Yeah, we saw multiple times last year where he would kind of string wins together, and kind of just, suck the air out of the room, I guess you could say, by winning multiple races in a row. And that's something that he's really good at, and grabbing momentum, and yeah, it's got to be a little nerve-wracking for some of these drivers that are hoping to contend for a championship, to see Hunter out here, pretty much dominating tonight's race.
Watching the battle now for 4th position, Jared Duda drawing a bead on Jared Darling. Closing up to within half a truck length. See if he makes a move here. Jared will probably let him go. Something I was noticing there just moments ago as well when we were watching our leader Hunter Madalinas, he's had to deal with a lap truck here and a lap truck there. He hasn't really had to deal with a group of lap trucks tonight. I was looking just moments ago. There's about a pack of 5 or 6 just up ahead of him. It will be interesting to see how he's able to maneuver his way through a large set of traffic now.
Yeah, big task here, and Madelinas is the type of guy, I would say, okay, you got a couple second lead. Let's take our time getting through this these lap trucks. But he's the guy that he's 100% all the time. So we'll have to see how he navigates that. That's a big part of this. We're really only 5 to 10 laps away from the final pit window opening. So maybe potentially some of these drivers that are catching lap traffic. I think if you're Madalinas, you want to run long just to make sure no one really steals this race from you with a caution when you're on pit road. But there's a lot of these drivers that maybe don't want to deal with lap traffic. Maybe it's time to come get those tires here in a little bit, in hopes that you can just avoid that possibility of having to pass them.
It's a great battle going on inside of the top 5. As diving low is going to be Jared Duda. He'll try and get to the left rear quarter panel here off of 2 of Jared Darling. Can't do it. Darling able to swing with that outside momentum, and he'll hold on to the 4th position, at least for the time being. Now, if you're Jared Duda, you got to use about another lap or 2 to try and close the gap back up. Like we said, it takes a couple of laps to set up the pass, and then maybe a couple of laps to complete the pass. Patience is always preached when you're at a track like Phoenix.
And both are running pretty high down in 1 and 2, at least on the entry. Kind of maybe sometimes cut off the corner of 2 to set yourself up on that straightaway that you're mentioning. That's just a weird exit sometimes. Both of these corners are such a unique exit, and then here, obviously cutting the dog leg is the 53 going to go all the way to the bottom here. Not close enough yet to Darling to make a pass here. Maybe going to run a little higher in 1 and 2.
On a diamond the corner there. You saw him turn the wheel rather early through the center of 1 and 2. Try to see if he could cross down to the inside. Oh, we do. That's Justin Mons over there, just past the start-finish line in the entrance of 1. Took over 100 laps, but the flagman finally has something to do tonight as he waves the yellow for the first time this evening. And this is outside of that window you were talking about, Ross. But do we have enough fuel after this pit stop to be able to make it the rest of the way?
This would be close. I mean, this would be this would be really close. So I think if you're, I think everyone pit here, obviously you've run long enough on tires, but yeah, it's we'll see what happens here with the 41. He come up in front of the 4, yeah.
It's hard to tell there. He might have come up. Fastno might have come down. They made contact nonetheless, and Justin Mons up into the outside wall. Near miss for Michael Sensi there. And that's going to bring out the first caution of the night. This is on board with Rod Fastnow. Yeah, it looks more so like, to your point, like the 41 kind of traveled up from the inside line up to the wall. Obviously, Fastnow having to turn left to avoid hitting the wall off of that corner. And the contact made. Here's a good look at it right there. That brings out the yellow, and here we go. Now, that was actually not too far ahead of Hunter Madalinas. He was starting to enter into that vicinity, so I almost wonder, no, the 41 and the 4, they weren't battling for position, but I almost wonder if that was a little bit of a desperation move there to make the pass by Justin Mons, realizing that maybe within the next 15 to 20 laps, he was going to find himself a lap down to the 7.
Yeah, we have an interesting story here unfolding with the 26 of Ashton Lawson. It looked like maybe, and I'm trying to hear, he's chatting right now on the chat, but he may have missed pit road the first time, didn't know it was open, and now pitting on the second lap. So he's gonna fall to the back. Yeah, this basically is gonna take away his chance, potentially more than likely, to win this race tonight.
One would certainly think so, because prior to the green flag pit stop cycle, we documented the mistake by Matthew Weeks. When that cycle concluded, he was 13th. When that caution came out, he was 12th. He had made up absolutely zero ground to speak of during the course of that run. So going to be deep in traffic. Will Ashton Lawson, who was out in front for a portion of this race, has been running second for most of the night. He's going to have a hard road to toe here with less than 70 laps remaining. And now everybody is bunched back up here. We saw a lot of hard racing, double wide, three wide at the beginning of this race. We ended up having those long green flag runs, the pit stop in the middle. Now that everybody's bumper to bumper, does the old adage come into play where cautions are going to breed cautions? Because this is about the most trucks everybody's battled with since we started tonight's race.
Now we see Spencer Owens is out front here, decided not to get tires. This is going to make it a really interesting battle down into 1 and 2 here. He did a nice job on the restart for a guy that hasn't gotten tires. So I don't know if he did the same thing as Lawson missed. Oh, we're going to have a stack up.
There we go. Jared Darling, Matthew Weeks, Shane Nicewanger, Brent Malone. Looks like the 85 as well of Sky Jackson going to get collected. Multi-truck incident there on the back straightaway. They were four wide for a brief moment there through 1 and 2.
Yeah, so I don't know what, obviously we saw Lawson had the problem maybe missing pit road. I don't know if Spencer Owens did the same thing and then decided, I don't want to get a black flag for pitting on the wrong lap and stayed out. But it almost looked like we'll see what happens on the replay here, but it almost looks like these drivers, kind of the back half of the top 10, were anticipating that 23 truck was going to be slow. And like they're almost like starting to make moves to get ready for him. Like I think Spencer did a great job here of getting away. And, for a guy on, 40 lap older tires than the rest of the pack, by the time he gets down through 1 and 2 here, I feel like some of these guys mid-pack or maybe just trying to figure out where everyone's going to go. You see the 85 way down on the bottom here.
It looked like maybe Jared Darling was starting to get loose coming off the corner. Makes some contact there with Jackson Sims, and then Matthew Weeks, Shane Nicewanger down the track. Nowhere for Brent Malone to go, and Jared Darling gets clipped there as well. A lot of our front runners, all of a sudden, things going horribly wrong. We mentioned Ashton Lawson with the pit road miscue, and Jared Darling, who's been up in the top 5 all night, collected up in this wreck.
And we talked about it at the beginning, during that first run for Jared Darling, a guy that he's had that a lot this year, where he's had some, tonight this was just maybe just a little bit of a kind of a racing deal. Obviously, he was, got a little loose there, but ultimately, just kind of, all came together. But it just seems that he's been able to do well in the first half of the race. Then something happens, you kind of feel bad for him. So, just waiting to finish off one of these and contend for the win. That unfortunately going to end up with some damage tonight.
Yeah, you're going to see it's the domino effect, right? You got Jared Darling, he gets into Jackson Sims. Elliot Henderson moves up to avoid the wreck, gets the wall in front of Matthew Weeks. Weeks turns low to avoid Henderson, and he goes around off the nose of Shane Nicewanger. So it was a lot of darting back and forth going on there, and ultimately the contact taking place between the 49 and the 56, collecting up the 29 and the 1 as well. That's some pretty good contact right there for a couple of those trucks front end into that inside wall. I mean, I believe that one of those trucks, the 56 and Matthew Weeks, may have had suspension damage as he wasn't even able to drive it back to pit road.
Yeah, and a handful of our drivers, that feel maybe pretty solid getting into this playoff are now maybe going to be a little nervous depending on how the rest of this race shakes out. You think about Nicewanger, Darling, Sims, they're all kind of, in that mix right there. Sims was able to, that maybe was a move to save his truck and save his playoff spot. He might lock in tonight after that move, but going back green here.
Here we go. Madalina's going to be the control truck as he'll lead this field into turn 1. Let's see how wide they decide to get this time here through the couple sets of corners. We're double wide all the way through the field. Looks like we might be shading 3 wide mid-pack around the 00 of Aiden DuPont. Couple of trucks going to brush the wall here off the second corner, down the straightaway to 3, but So far, so good. Keeping it all pointed in the right direction. It's amazing how... Oh, really loose there on the bottom. That was Eric Kempf, I believe, in the 63. Nice save by him off of 4. But it's incredible how momentum can shift from week to week. Last time these drivers raced, it was Matthew Weeks going to victory lane for the second time this season. Tonight, he's the first driver in the garage area.
Break for...
Whoa, we got one really loose back there. I think that was Justin Mons in the 41 on the back straightaway. It's like he was able to gather it back up. A lot of drivers getting really loose here in the early going.
Yeah, you said it. Cautions breed cautions, and one of the problems here, I think, is you had the long green flag runs where these drivers, took 10 laps to make one position. Right now, these guys, especially the back half, this is their time. They feel like this is our opportunity. We saw Caressel running 13th, 14th in the running order during that last run. Now he's up to 8th, just able to jump and gain a couple positions here if you're aggressive, and we're seeing it from a lot of these drivers.
We've talked about Brent Kincott tonight, Nathan Jump. How about Michael Sensi and Hunter Brittle? A couple of drivers that were borderline still mathematically eligible to point their way up into the top 10. Sensi is now in the 9th position. Hunter Brittle not that far behind in 14th. So this caution breathed new life into their potential playoff hopes.
We saw Sensi just to the inside of the 41 of Mons and Fausnow during that 2 cautions ago, just barely getting by those guys, getting into the wall, and now he's up to 9th. So yeah, a couple cautions here just really reset a lot of these drivers. See Nicewanger here, we saw him in that last caution, still able to be running up here in 13th. Pretty solid considering he was kind of got a little bit of damage on that last caution.
We had no cautions for the first 100 laps. We have since then had 2 yellow flags. You said on that first caution we were borderline, right on maybe the mark to make it. Did that second caution give us enough pacing laps that we saved enough fuel now to be ensured to make it to the finish?
I'd like to think so, but I don't know. We'll see. We have a couple trucks. I see Spencer Owens was one that topped off just on this last caution, so I would imagine he's good to go. He's basically, if it goes green the rest of the way, he would go just as far as our farthest drivers did the first run. So I think no problem there. I think everybody else, they're going to be a little close. I think right now they're just trying to gain track position. Maybe you can save on the long run and I think ultimately make it, but I don't think it's going to be easy. I think it's something you're going to have to think about if you're one of these front runners.
Think about those drivers that topped off, Owens as well as Shane Nicewanger, Trey Bartow, Matthew Durr, Cy Jackson. With some of those drivers coming to pit lane, that helped. But how about Ashton Lawson, after he had to come down pit road on the second lap, did not know pit road was open the first time by. He's been able to work his way now up to the 9th position. So I'll tell you what, he gained a lot more ground in a short amount of time than I expected he was going to be able to. The question is, though, does he have enough time to get up to where he's been running most of the night, which is the top 5?
I think that some of these drivers, obviously if you pitted, which Lawson didn't on this last caution, if you pitted, you maybe can make this to the end. Maybe you can surprise some of these drivers that maybe are going to be close on fuel. But if you're Lawson here, you're on pretty much the same strategy as these top 10. Really, the caution just gave you a chance to catch up and hit these restarts. He's done pretty well to get himself up to 9th here. So I think he's going to probably need another couple cautions and maybe just see where the tires fall. Pretty much everybody has still a couple sets left of tires. So I think, if cautions come out after 15, 20 laps, many drivers are going to come down, and another reset or two might give Lawson a chance to get back up there.
We also didn't document that under these 2 cautions. First caution put James Shiflett back on the lead lap with the free pass. Rod Fastenau got one of his 2 laps back under the second yellow flag. So good job there for James Shiflett to be able to now get himself back on the same lap as the leaders. He's currently running in 22nd place. I believe he's the last truck on the lead lap up to speed. There are 2 trucks behind him that are on the lead lap, but they are the wounded trucks of Jared Darling and Brent Malone, who were involved in that multi-truck wreck on the back straightaway.
This kind of brings an interesting kind of view into what this final run could be if it does go green. We see up front, you see Madalinas is up there, and Duda and Peterson are staying close to him. We've seen that 53 and 71 both be pretty good on the long run. and you know, really didn't get a chance to ever catch up to Madalenas just because he got away on that first run. So this time they're going to be right behind him for the early part of this run. If this goes green, could they potentially on the long run contend with that 7 truck? It'll be interesting to see.
Jared Duda went coast to coast at Martinsville. You mentioned how this track in some ways races like a short track, so might fall into his wheelhouse. Christian Peterson, former winner this season as well, back at Richmond, another racetrack that's considered a short track. So to your point, it's been the closest they've been able to get to sniffing the race leader in Hunter Madalenas. It's not Ashton Lawson in the rearview mirror anymore. It's some new competition for Madalenas. We'll have to see if he's able to continue the pace, slowly open up that gap, no matter who it is that's running up in the second position. Right now, it's kind of maintained anywhere from 2.5 tenths to 3 tenths here for these last few laps.
And ultimately, a lot of these drivers here, I don't know if we'll get to a point to see if any of them would save a little bit of fuel at some point. I think, you know, obviously the pace slows down. We saw that in the first 2 runs, but, you know, even with the pace slowing down, you know, Madalenas was able to go the farthest, and so did Caressel at 62 laps. So, you know, that's pretty tough to make it from there. So that'll be tough to see that happen for these guys, but we'll see. I'm excited to see if this plays out. If anyone, maybe if you're some of these drivers, you can't save enough, maybe you're gonna have to pit here in a little bit, go get those fresh tires in hopes that you can, you know, gain some ground on the second half of this run while everybody else is either saving and using up their stuff.
We're closing up on 45 laps to go here tonight at Phoenix, and as we look at the running order, number of drivers are looking in good shape to have themselves locked into a playoff position as early as tonight, regardless of what happens next week at the 2-mile speedway of Auto Club. Madalenas leading this race, Peterson currently in 3rd, Jackson Sims in 5th, Elliott Henderson in 6th, Ashton Lawson in 8th, and Spencer Owens in 10th. I believe if all those drivers manage to finish where they are or even gain another spot or 2, they would mathematically be locked into the playoffs for next week's regular season finale.
Christian Peterson slowly kind of fall away from the Duda and Madalenas here. I just wonder what he's up to, if he's maybe trying to save on the long run, hoping that Duda and Madalenas get to racing here. But yeah, Jared Duda has been just a 10th or 2 faster than Madalenas the last couple laps here, putting a little pressure on that 7 truck. We'll see if it takes a lot of pressure to maybe get him to make a mistake in that 7 truck, but we'll see if he's got something for him here.
Talk about Hunter Madalenas trying to find victory lane for a second time this season to get some consistency back, 1 season removed from winning the championship. How about Jared Duda? We documented he won at Martinsville, but this is a driver that is currently sitting 22nd in points as he makes the dive to the inside of Madalenas. His best finish outside of that Martinsville win, that would be 16th. That was back at Pocono. All of his other finishes are 20th or worse.
Yeah, feast or famine a lot of times for this 53 truck, and yeah, we've seen many times where he's run up front, you know, beyond Martinsville and had issues or wasn't able to finish the race. And I think, you know, these two have had maybe a couple run-ins this year too, so there's a little bit of pressure maybe from some of these guys. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I don't know. I feel like Duda had an opportunity there. He pulled alongside, but now he's kind of falling back again. So maybe he just has to reset to give him a chance to get back to the 7 truck.
Yeah, these 2 trucks might look similar. They both are Ford F1 series. They're both got the sponsorship of Ford on their hoods, but they're not teammates. 53 is fielded out of Manji Motorsports, the 7 truck out of Spectrum Racing, and these 2 right now appear to be the 2 to battle it out maybe for this victory. Peterson, to your point, kind of falling back a little bit. Nathan Jump appears to maybe be closing up for that 3rd spot, so we may have a battle for the lead and a battle for the final spot on the podium here in the closing stages as they're going to approach some traffic. That is Brent Malone, who is involved in that 4-truck pileup on the back straightaway, wounded off the pace as he'll move up top and yield to the race leaders here out of 4.
And still just going a lap down for Malone, so ultimately get back going here. If a caution comes out, maybe, you know, gain a couple positions based on cautions. I don't blame him for running ahead. It's such a solid run going tonight. You feel bad for a guy like that had that opportunity to you know, maybe run in the top 10 all night tonight and just had that incident and got caught up in it. So yeah, kind of looking at these guys, you know, I don't think there's any saving going on. It looks like now the 53 Aduda back to a 10th or so faster than Madalena, slowly trying to reel him back in. That last lap there, they're all pretty identical lap times actually in the top 4. So Peterson and Jump have maybe gained a little bit on these guys and just slowly staying, you know, slowly catching up if he can. But we'll see if yeah, now the 53 run a little higher. I like that in 3 and 4, maybe trying to get a run. I think you gotta have the different lane down in 1 and 2. If you can build a little momentum in 3 and 4 as he did here, we'll see if he can get it alongside the 7.
Great shots here from our producer Jeff Johnson as we're on board with the 53. Ooh, trying to make sure he doesn't slide up the racetrack into the left rear quarter panel. Just can't seem to be able to get back to the throttle. We see that little slip up there. He has to wait before he's able to punch the gas, and that's allowing Hunter Madalenas with that wider lane there around the corners, still though to be able to hold him off for the race lead. If you're Jared Duda, you've tried the bottom now twice, it hasn't worked. Do you maybe have to consider seeing if you can get to his right rear quarter panel and swing around him on the top side?
I think that's not a bad idea. Here's going to look to the inside again in 3 and 4. It's so tough down there.
Ooh.
I think that you want to. I think he's, you know, his best option would be if you could get to the outside in 1 and 2. The problem is, I think if Madalenas knows if he's close enough, he maybe will defend that a little bit more. Here it looks like the 53 going to roll the top a little bit, but just maybe not close enough. We'll see if he can get to the outside. He's definitely going to have a run.
But this battling going on, look who's entering into the conversation. All of a sudden, Christian Peterson, Nathan Jump, they're up here with a shot. There's contact into 3 and 4 between Duda and Madalenas. They keep it together, but first time we've seen some contact exchange between these two for the race lead. It may not be the last time, as we've still got a little more than 35 to go.
Look at Peterson and Jump back there looking forward, probably just excited, you know, to have an opportunity here to make this a 4-truck battle. We see Peterson get a little bit of the wall off the corner. I think nothing too bad there, using up all the track. We'll see the 53 now going to be to the back bumper on the 7. If he can stay right here, maybe have an opportunity to try to ship it on the outside here. We'll see if he, Madalenas might block that advance.
The thing here too is how much is the 53 using up on offense, how much is the 7 using on defense, and would they have anything left when Peterson and Nathan Jump get up here to be able to hold off either one of them?
It'll be interesting to see if what the 71 does, if he gets there before the 53 is able to make this pass, if he can make the pass. And does he wait a little bit and let this play out? If he does, then Jump's going to be there. Now I see Lawson's up to 5th too. He's a lot farther back, but at least if these guys get to racing, you never know. He could get back in this.
Your top 3 drivers have all been to victory lane this season. Nathan Jump in 4th. Still looking for that first trip to victory lane. Only one top 5 coming into tonight so far for the driver of the 11. He's been consistently up here inside of the top 10 all night. Currently holding down that 4th position and might have the best seat in the house for what's going down here. I thought for a moment Jared Duda was actually going to have a little blue paint on the right side as he was all up towards the wall there in 1 and 2.
Yeah, I feel like if Duda's not able to make this pass here in a couple laps, he's probably going to be in trouble with those tires. He definitely has been the one that's been kind of up, you know, all over the track, using up his stuff. I think, you know, he's going to need to get this pass made, or he's going to be in trouble, I think, here in the next handful of laps.
Lose a little ground here through 1 and 2. It's going to allow Peterson to close in. We've got a little bit of traffic up ahead that these drivers are going to have to deal with here. I believe it's one of our lap trucks there. Might be the 4 of Rod Fast now. No, I'm sorry, that's the 3 of Travis Hanby. Hopefully he'll be out of the way as this battle continues to rage for the top position. And to your point earlier, doesn't look like we're saving anything whatsoever, whether it be tires or whether it be fuel. So we apparently, I would assume, are good to make it the rest of the way, or else we wouldn't probably be racing this hard.
Yeah, I don't know. It looks like the 53 is gonna again gets
Wow.
really close. I get that's impressive to be able to drive down there and not slide up into the 7. I think if he gets more opportunities, it's gonna be less and less likely that they're both able to hold on to it. But a great job, great piece of driving by both of them to do that. On the fuel end, I imagine a lot of these guys feel pretty confident based on how they're driving for sure. I just kind of was thinking. If you are a lap or two short, the guy that these guys all pitted on lap 102, Ashton Lawson pitted on lap 103. Now it's just one caution lap, but that was due to the mistake on pit road. So maybe he has just a, tenth of a gallon more than these guys. If it does somehow come down to fuel, would it be funny if Lawson was able to capitalize on that mistake and have enough to get here? I don't know. All these guys are using up their stuff. We'll see if they can make it.
It's interesting you bring up Ashton Lawson's name. I've been keeping an eye on him, and the last 10 laps, he has been putting down some of the fastest lap times of the top 5 here. This battling that's been going on for the race lead, Peterson and Jump closing up, having a little bit of dirty air to the nose in this 4-truck pack, has allowed the 26 of Ashton Lawson to close up now to 2.5 seconds from the race lead, 1.3 seconds between himself and the position of 4th place, currently held by Nathan Jump. I think we've still got enough laps, and with how much is getting used up here with these top 4, Ashton Lawson may not yet be out of this thing.
Yeah, and I just wonder if, Peterson and Jump here, they've had the option to maybe save their tires a little bit. Are they going to all of a sudden have a run at these two? And if you get all 4 racing, then yeah, for sure, I could see Lawson, sneaking up there as much as the 71 and the 11 did when the 7 and 53 started battling. So still a long way to go, really 25 laps here to finish this. So, anything can happen. You got the slower lap trucks that you're going to catch a couple times here, I think, throughout the end of this race if it goes green. So a couple variables and obstacles yet as the 53 is kind of reset now and maybe going to try again on this 7.
It's amazing how those couple of cautions changed the fortunes of a number of drivers. Already documented about Michael Sensi up here inside of the top 10. How about Shane Neiswanger? He started mid-pack. He was mired anywhere from 15th to 20th place for most of this race. That was even after that first cycle green flag pit stops, and now he's been able to make his way up solidly in the 8th position as he's looking to lock himself up a spot in the playoffs potentially here tonight. He was 6th in points coming into this evening's festivities, so a great job of making lemonade out of early lemons for the driver of the 49 as this battle for the race lead is not going away, but we're not quite seeing Jared Duda be able to get the run off of turn 2 to set up a pass for turn 3 like he was able to do consistently lap after lap. To your point, might have used up quite a bit of his stuff, not able to really call upon it here now in the later stages.
It's interesting how much lower Madalinas is off of the turn 2 there. Just kind of his line, and it's given the 53 an opportunity to just kind of look out the outside off of 2. Not enough to, stick his nose there, but I imagine if he ever was able to find a little bit of grip through 1 and 2, there's that opening that he maybe feels he could, slide in there. I think he definitely wants to get to the outside. I think he knows that's his only chance. Man, he gets close to the wall, both of them, as they come off of turn 2.
That right rear quarter panel is going to be all worn out by the end of this one as he loses a little bit of ground to Hunter Madalinas. Peterson had a really good 3 and 4 right there as he'll close up on the 53. Nathan Jump is still there, and you see that truck just behind them. That is Ashton Lawson trying to close it up to less than 2 seconds between himself and this lead pack of 4.
Yeah, I kind of am surprised that we haven't seen more out of... Oh, now with 53's got problems.
Yes, he does.
Some kind of problem there. I don't know if that was maybe just a early break or something. I don't know, but some big damage there on the back. That means that there's probably some nose damage on that 71.
Not sure exactly what happened there to Jared Duda, but yeah, to your point, Christian Peterson ran directly into the back of Jared Duda as they were going that last time here into the entrance of turn 3. Peterson will make his way by, and that's now going to give some breathing space to Hunter Madalinas. It's also going to take Jared Duda breathing down his neck out of the equation, as whatever that issue was there, was it maybe an accidental downshift?
I'm wondering if he is conceding the win here and now saving fuel, because now Nathan Jump just hit pit road. So I'm nervous if some of these guys can make it. Is the 53 of Duda, did he clutch it going into the corner and that kind of surprised Peterson? Maybe he's thinking now, I used up my stuff. There's no way I'm going to catch Madalinas. Now my best chance to win this thing is maybe clutching it and trying to maybe Jump is on pit road here. I don't know. This seems to be, it's just a regular pit stop here. So that makes me feel that these guys are definitely on the edge. If a guy like Jump decided to hit pit road, running in fourth and ultimately having a shot at this win. Now here comes Peterson. Yeah.
Too. Wow. So we got pit stops here with about nearing 15 laps to go. Peterson from the top 5. Nathan Jump from the top 5. He was fourth. Jared Duda, to your point, maybe trying to save to get to the end here. Now the question is from Hunter Madalinas, what do you do? Because you spent all that time, couldn't be fuel saving as you were trying to hold off Jared Duda. Are you able to save enough fuel here at this point to get to the end, or did the 53 in a sense kind of run you into having to make a pit stop?
Yeah, I don't know if, obviously if Duda is now clutching his truck in hopes of saving, that makes me feel like that, Madalinas is almost going to have to do the same. If Duda thinks that giving up all that track, falling back 3-4 seconds now, yeah, that's a big drop off. So that makes me feel like these guys that are up here running for the win, they're really going to have to save a lot. I look at a guy now, when that last caution came out, we saw Spencer Owens top off Shane Neiswanger. Owens handful of laps ago must have maybe gotten the wall a little bit, but he lost a couple positions. So Neiswanger now has, a couple laps more of fuel. Is he a guy that could potentially steal this? Depending on if these top 5, he's a guy that has just a little bit more fuel than the top 5 here. So it'll be interesting to see. I love me some fuel mileage racing. We'll see who's got it here at the end of this one.
Out of the top 9 in points, Shane Neiswanger has the least amount of top 5s, only 2, but he's been consistently in the top 10 in those weeks he's not finished in the top 5, which is why he's 6th in points. Could be, as you said, it could be some good fuel strategy there, some pit strategy to top off under the last yellow that might get him his first win of the season. He's starting to close up here on Jared Duda, who we know is in fuel save mode. Brent Kingcott and Jackson Sims have made their way around the 93. There's Nathan Jump. He's got those fresh tires after he was on pit road. That was close as he cut across the nose of Jared Duda. Now looking to the inside of Brent Kingcott. The 11 is a lap down. He is putting those fresh tires to good use, hoping that everybody else that was ahead of him when he hit pit road cannot make it on fuel. I believe we have Ashton Lawson on pit lane in the 26, pitting from what would have been at the time second place.
That makes you wonder now. Madalina's going to have a good 5-second lead. Does that make him feel comfortable to be able to save the next 10 laps here? We'll see if he comes down and pits at all. He's going to stay out there. I wonder if he feels confident now with a 5-second lead. Can you give that up over the next 10 laps and save enough to make it? It'll be interesting to see if that is the case. We got Sims and Kingcott, both of them trying to get a good finish here and make sure that they're in one of these playoff spots. They got to be a little nervous in their spots too, just trying to see if they can make it to the end.
Madalinas might be coming in here as he's just going to let Peterson with those fresher tires around the outside. I mean, is it possible at this point in time, if we've had drivers like the 11, the 26, the 71 dive to pit lane, Madalinas was last on pit road the same time that they were. He'd have about the same amount of fuel in his truck. Is there any way to be able to save 10 to 12 laps of fuel?
I don't think that much, but I just wonder if these drivers were, ultimately, I think they probably assumed that this run was going to have a couple cautions in it, and they really didn't think it's going to run green. So the best option then is to go get that clean air. And then as we got going there, once they knew it was going to be green, I think a lot of them maybe got to a point where it was too late to save fuel. So I don't know. Madalinas now, you see, it looks like just run a little bit lower, maybe just trying to save him, save a little bit of fuel here, and ultimately maintaining that 5-second gap. So I don't know. We'll see if maybe he feels confident that he can make it. I just don't know. Ultimately, he might just be the type of guy that I want to stay up front and lead this. And if I run out of gas with 4 laps to go, or I have to pit with 4 laps to go, I'd rather lose that way than pit and let somebody beat me on fuel mileage. I feel like maybe that's his style. He's hoping for a caution to then just reset and try to win this race on a late restart.
It's a good point. He might have tried considering running long here because he had Christian Peterson a lap down, Ashton Lawson a lap down, Nathan Jump a lap down, thinking if I end up getting a caution at the right time, they're trapped off the lead lap. Granted, one of them probably would have gotten the free pass, but now Peterson's gotten by him. He's got Nathan Jump closing in on him. You've also got Ashton Lawson not that far behind, so I almost wonder, once those drivers end up getting by him, maybe that's when he throws out the parachute and dives to pit lane here. He might be banking on a yellow flag, getting him to trap some of those stronger trucks from this night off the lead lap.
Just wonder, you got a lot of trucks out there now with fresher tires that did make that pit stop, that are just, driving through this mess. I see now Jared Duda, we saw him kind of slow down there if he was saving fuel. If that's the case, it looks like maybe now he saw Niswanger, who maybe is a guy that topped off could make it, that maybe he's now trying to just stay ahead of him. I see Duda's now looking to the inside at King Cott, maybe trying to get back in front of the second and third place guys in case Madalinas just lost about a second on second place here. So definitely some kind of fuel saving going on in that 7 truck.
It is getting really interesting as we've hit 5 laps to go here tonight at Phoenix. We're 3 wide on the front straightaway, different drivers, different agendas, some saving fuel, some able to make it. Some have already pit and have fresh tires trying to cut their way through the field. Communication is key in this type of a scenario, with different drivers being able to turn different lap times here, as Madalena is continuing to try and nurse an over 4-second gap back to teammates Jackson Sims and Brent Kincott. Kincott right now, we talked about him coming into tonight, needed a good run to be able to get in the conversation for a playoff spot. He very well might get it if he's able to have enough fuel to get to the checkered flag. I guarantee you, every single one of these drivers from first back to fourth, they want to see that white flag as soon as possible.
Just looking back, Jackson Sims, Brent Kincott, guys that have raced in this series, 100, nearly 100 races for both. A little, I guess, one of them has a little bit more than 100, and both looking for a win. A first career win. What a way to do it! If somehow the 7 truck is not able to make it, could one of them get their first victory tonight?
Be incredible. Right now, running. Oh, that was a big gain right there by Jackson Sims. Looking at our live ticker there. Might have been Hunter Madalena saving, clutching through 3 and 4 as he'll hit the stripe. 2 laps to go. Does he have enough fuel to get there? Could he be at a point maybe where he'd run out going into 3 and be able to coast to the start-finish line? He might have been able to crunch the numbers that well. That was Kyle Cooper coming to pit road. He can't make it. James Shiflett on pit road. He can't make it. Drivers starting to drop like flies here as their tanks are drying out.
Just listening in on his truck. It's running right now. White flag out. Can Madalena bring it back around? We'll see if entering turn 1. I'm just listening to the engine. Definitely still clutching it. We'll see if he can make it.
He can get himself over to turn 3. I think he's got enough of a gap where he could clutch the entirety of 3 and 4 and still make it to the checkered flag. Able to pick up the throttle here on the back straightaway. I think he's got this in hand. A dominating performance here tonight as he'll pick up his 2nd win of the season. Tonight's Arizona 170 at Phoenix belongs to Madalenas. Sims will get 2nd, Kincott in 3rd. Niswanger was able to snipe Jared Duda. He'll get 4th. Spencer Owens is going to complete the top 5. Duda may have actually run out of fuel there. Coming through 3 and 4, he'll cross the line in the 6th position with Caressel, Bartow, Keff, and Brittle. Look at the latter half of this top 10. Drivers that went with that topping off strategy under caution, going to net top 10 performances tonight.
Listening to Madalenas on that last lap. through 3 and 4, he decided to clutch it there too, even though he had a 4-second gap. So he had to have been a little close. He's been clutching it here on the cool down lap, maybe trying to just get it back around and do a burnout here. We'll see how much. He said, I heard Nathan jump on the radio at that last lap and just said to Manalius, "Are you gonna make it?" And he said, "Oh yeah, I should be good," but he was still clutching it. So it'll be fun to talk to him about how close he actually was gonna do a burnout here. So saved enough to make sure he could celebrate here tonight.
Enough fuel for a celebration here just underneath that neon cactus at the flag stand, as Hunter Madalinas will now join Daniel Nanny, Christian Peterson, and Matthew Weeks as a multi-time winner here in Season 11 of the Great Lakes Racing Truck Series. Incredible run for him here tonight. Strongest truck of the evening, but we kind of wondered if that victory was going to be in jeopardy as fuel questions arose. A number of drivers that were up inside of the top 5 had to dive onto pit road late. Madalinas was able to find the formula that got him to the finish. You can see on the top of your screen the finishing results scrolling across, and big nights if you're Jackson Sims and Brent Kincott, because for Jackson Sims, he came into this race 8th in points. This may lock him into the playoffs. For Brent Kincott, we talked about the fact that there was no Zachary Henry, no Tony Manji. Big opportunity to capitalize, get yourself up above that 10th in the standings cut line. He very well might have done that here tonight with a podium finish.
And I think a guy like Matthew Durr, he struggled most of the night. Kind of running back in about 20th, but able to get an 11th place. That might give him just at least an outside shot going into next week to still get into the playoffs. He's going to maybe need some work next week. But Nicholas Caressel, who was a little bit farther back too, obviously was able to come back and finish 7th by saving fuel. So yeah, a handful of these drivers that needed a good run that maybe weren't getting it early on were able to get it with the way that this race played out, and ultimately were got a good finish and give themselves life going into the final race next week before the playoffs.
On the flip side there for Nathan Jump, wasn't able to make it on fuel, had to pit in the closing stages, managed to race his way back onto the lead lap, but he will ultimately finish 17th here tonight. He was another driver that was in that window that maybe could point his way into the top 10. Not sure if this is going to put him in a situation where mathematically he could point his way in next week. We'll have to wait and see, but as you said, some life there for drivers like Aiden DuPont, Matthew Durr, Hunter Brittle with a top 10 run. He still could be in the conversation. I wouldn't even count out Eric Kempf, 9th place here tonight, and he was 19th in points coming to this evening. I feel like the points are going to close up quite a bit around that cut line and may make things very interesting going into Auto Club next week. But let's head down trackside and see if we can dial up our podium finishers. Let's go down to Victory Lane and get a hold of the master of the fuel strategy here tonight, Hunter Madalinas. Hunter, it's the guys up here in the split-second broadcasting booth. You got us?
Yeah, I got you.
Man, I'll tell you what, we were on pins and needles up here. We weren't sure if you were going to have enough fuel to make it to the end. We saw the 53 kind of throw out the parachute and start saving. The 26, the 11, they had to come to pit road. It kind of almost looked like you might be on the same numbers as them. You had to really not be able to save fuel as you were holding off the 53 for a good portion of that run. How in the world, with all that going on, were you able to save enough fuel to be able to get to the end?
I think the race officials got to go back and look at my fuel tank. I think I had a larger fuel tank than everyone else. No, man, I have zero clue. I think it was the difference of everyone, it seemed, around me when it came to the long run, short run, was downshifting in both ends of the course, and everyone else was also running that like second to third lane, where I spent the entire night running that bottom lane against the yellow line and just staying in fourth gear the entire time. I think that was really what was able to help me. Yeah, I just don't know. Duda was pressuring me so hard at the beginning of that last run, and he had me pushing. I had to downshift into third a couple times when he got to my inside, but then I saw Peterson hung back and Jump hung back, and they started catching me just before they came to pit road, so I was thinking they saved fuel and they were good, and I saw Duda fall off of me and he came to pit road, and then Christian came to pit road, and then Jump came to pit road, and I was just able after that was just like clutch and coast, and I had a big gap that even with them pitting and me clutching the whole way, like I could make it easily.
Ross pointed out the fact that under that second caution, we had a handful of drivers come down pit road and top off the fuel tank. You were of the drivers that elected to stay out, as you've had this 7 truck out in front all night long. It's kind of a twofold question. One, were you banking on maybe another caution coming out so that way you guys would be safe on fuel? And then what was the point of the race where you kind of looked down and realized, oh, wow, it's really close. I got to start saving. Was it the beginning of that run as soon as we went back green, or was it later on?
Um, yeah, I wanted to keep track position, which was the main point that I didn't pit, and kind of spent most of tonight focusing on keeping the race lead and being aggressive, having the lead. But yeah, I think the first time it hit my mind that I can make it, I had little over 30 laps to go in the fuel tank, which was probably about 37-ish laps in the race to go. I was looking down at it, and I felt like if Duda kept pressuring me the way he was, and if Peterson was able to get up there and pressure me, I didn't think I was going to be able to make it. But Duda, it looked like either he realized that he couldn't make it on fuel, or just started struggling overall. But once he started backing off on me, I was able to kind of, run my own line, run my own pace, lift a little bit earlier, and coast to get just a little bit more fuel mileage per lap.
Well, Hunter, welcome back to Victory Lane. Been a while since we've seen you in Victory Circle. Dominating performance here tonight and getting hot here at just the right time with the playoffs getting put together at the conclusion of next week's regular season finale at Auto Club. We'll let you get back to your celebrating here in a moment, but before we do, we'll give you the opportunity here for some thank you sponsors and shoutouts.
Yeah, just thank you to Eric Kep for inviting me back to Spectrum Racing. I always love winning for them, being the first team that I was ever a part of. But yeah, just big thanks to everyone tonight. They kept it really clean. It was really awesome, again, for the second week in a row to have a pretty clean race, that we have, green flag pit stops, and we have long runs that we're able to kind of stretch out against each other. But yeah, just big thanks for y'all too, putting on the broadcast.
Hunter Madalinas, he's your winner here tonight in the desert as he takes the Arizona 170 at Phoenix Raceway. Congratulations on the great run tonight. Some great momentum going into next week's regular season finale at Auto Club. Best of luck there.
Thanks, Seth.
And let's see if we can get Ross to get a hold of our second place finisher here tonight.
Yeah, Jackson, you got a copy?
Yeah, I got you.
So second place tonight after a handful of the front runners up there started dropping off for fuel. You were able to make it in the end and bring home second. And ultimately, just unofficially looking at it, going to set you up pretty much to make this playoff here before the final week. So, the saving in the end. How close were you? And were you really hoping that 7 truck of Madalinas was going to run out?
I was convinced he was going to run out. Like, I don't know how he saved that much with how fast he ran. And, all the other guys that ran up there with him all had to pit. So props to him. He's really good at that. But I ran out right at the line, so a lap less or a lap longer that run out at pit. But man, that was I don't know. I kind of like fuel strategy races like that. It brings another element into it. I think I'm good at. So it gave me a chance to get a top 5 tonight. I doubt I was going to get it otherwise.
Yeah, throughout the night tonight, you really ran up front and was in the top 10 pretty much the whole way. What was the racing like as far as, the long green flag runs, how much the track was changing throughout the run with the tires? It looked like a lot of fall off. What was that like, racing around your competitors? And really, we talked about on the broadcast, setting up passes took a long time to make a pass and ultimately move up through the pack.
Yeah, it was really hard to pass. You almost had to kind of like diamond a corner and get under somebody and hope they blew turn 3. But man, it's kind of, you kind of had to treat it like an F1 type strategy where it was almost best to just undercut the guy in front of you and hope you come out in front of them and then kind of run where you are for the rest of the fuel run. So it was really difficult. The line and 1 and 2 moved around all race, top, bottom, back to. I think it went back to the bottom at the end, but it was definitely a challenge.
So now you're looking forward to the playoffs here, moving past the Auto Club next week. Another chance to maybe go compete for a win or a good finish before the playoffs. What's your thoughts on the playoffs and what you'll be able to do in this six truck?
I really like the playoff schedule, so if I can, have some good runs and not get taken out in any wrecks, I think I'll finish top half of the chase. It's definitely my goal. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, it's great to talk to you, Jackson. In second place tonight, we'll give you a chance. Finish in the top three, you get this opportunity to shout out anybody and thank anybody that got you here.
Yeah, shout out to you guys for doing the broadcast, and shout out my grandparents watching back at their house, and my teammates, especially Brent. We were kind of on the same boat as far as fuel strategy goes, and we were able to kind of help each other out. So it was fun.
Thanks, Jackson.
Thank you.
Now let's see if we can dial up our third place performer here tonight, Brent Kingcott. Brett's the guys up here in the split-second broadcasting booth. You got us?
Gotcha, boys.
Man, I'll tell you what. We didn't obviously see the last race out when we were at Texas, but back-to-back podium finishes here in your last two starts. You had the third place performance back at Worldwide Technologies, and here tonight, third place performance at Phoenix. You came into tonight 12th in points, 37 points below the 10th in the standings cut line. You go into Auto Club now 11th in the standings, only 3 points below the cut line. All the strategy we saw you play out here tonight, coming down pit road there when you did, saving the fuel when you did, all of that, how much were you thinking ahead towards your positioning for Auto Club and an opportunity here to point your way into a playoff berth?
Well, I mean, I kind of just ran the race how I wanted to run it, just like I did at Gateway. But yeah, great strategy from Sims. Basically, we knew that we were going to be close on fuel, so we're just like, okay, we got to save this entire stint. And that's what we did. I guess I got to pull out my old wheel because I'm technically going on holidays next week, so I might have to do a starting park just so I can make it.
Well, we heard your teammate there say he ran out of fuel just at the start finish line. Where were you at in terms of fuel, and at what point did you start saving? Because when we were talking with Madalinas, he said he started saving when he had about a 4-second gap. It took him a little bit longer into that run. Was it at the very beginning when we went back green that you already started saving that fuel, or was it about the same scenario?
Well, I mean, right at the restart, I was trying to get ahead of Caressel and I think it was Senzi at that time. I knew that I needed to get ahead of them, and then once I got ahead of them, then I started saving. So that was probably maybe 10 laps into the stint.
Okay. Also, we were talking about the situation here in the closing stages. Different drivers trying to save fuel. Drivers had come to pit road. They were on fresher tires. Traffic control, maintaining traffic control, very important at a venue like this where it can be very narrow coming off of a corner and you have all those different options when you're going into the turns. How much communication had to go on there when you had different drivers on different agendas here in the closing stages?
Oh, there's a lot of communication. Like me and Sims were basically trying to work together, try to stay with each other. Basically, if someone got near me, I basically had to warn them, next corner, they're going to be on you. So it was definitely a lot of teamwork between the 5 and the 6.
Well, Brent, congratulations on a job well done here tonight. Closing up that gap to the 10th in the standings cut line, giving yourself an opportunity to lock yourself into the playoffs next week at Auto Club. Back-to-back third place performances here in your last two starts as well. What a time to get hot. We'll give you the opportunity here now for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Well, first of all, I wish I was at Texas last week. Unfortunately, I was on a hospital bed instead. But hey, I'm here. We finished third. I'd like to thank all my teammates on KFS, on the road side and the oval side, because obviously we always communicate with each other. And I definitely give a shout out to Sims for the amazing strategy near the end. But yeah, amazing race. Thank you for you guys for doing the broadcast. I finally get to be in an interview for once after how many times I've been on a podium and I've never been in an interview. So feels great, and yeah, I'm looking forward to next week, and obviously got holidays to think about too. But yeah, let's see if we can get it.
Well, a great fuel strategy effort puts Bren Kingcott P3 here tonight in the desert at Phoenix Raceway. Congratulations on a great run, and best of luck next week as you look to lock yourself into the playoffs.
Thanks, boys.
And that's your top 3 finishers here tonight. As expected here, Ross, that cut line, that gap has closed up quite a bit. As mentioned, Brent Kingcott, he's only 3 points back, only 13 points back. Nicholas Caressel, same for Matthew Durr. So there's about a trio of drivers that could really show up next week when we get to Auto Club and could find themselves starting the race below the cut line, but well above the cut line when the checkered flag is out.
I think just looking at the math of it, Zach Henry is going to be ineligible. He's requested not to be in the playoffs just because of his schedule, and we saw that he wasn't here tonight. So he's going to be a guy that's not there. So really, that gives Brent Kingcott that last spot right now. So really, he's in just about a handful of points ahead of Caressel for really what would be that final spot. I see Jared Darling. He's 9th in points. He really is just going to need to finish next week, and I think he'll be fine. But we talked about it. Sims unofficially, that should lock him in. So it'll be really interesting to see a lot of those drivers, like Brent was just saying. He's definitely got to show up if he wants to make that spot. Otherwise, there's going to be a great battle here with Caressel, Durr. They're tied. Manji just 1 point behind him, and then about 14 points back to jump from there. So a handful of drivers really just trying to get that last spot. It'll be fun to watch next week at Auto Club.
Roughly from about 1st to 8th, those drivers mathematically look like they're in good shape here tonight to be locked into the playoffs. So if you're Peterson, Henderson, Owens, Lawson, Weeks, Nicewanger, Madalinas, and Sims next week, what are you looking for? Are you just looking for a good run? Are you looking for a checkered flag to begin the playoffs? Are you just looking for good momentum? Is it a combination of the 3? Like, what's the goal for those drivers now that they know that they're at least going to be battling for a championship? Maybe it's an opportunity to size up the competition before we begin the playoffs.
Yeah, I think just looking at the format, the 2nd through 10th in points are all reset together. So really, if you're 2nd or 10th, there's nothing different as far as where you're at in that order, because you all reset to the same. The guy that will get some extra points is the guy that leads, and that's Christian Peterson right now. So he's got a 21 point buffer. So I imagine if he first half of the race, if he runs decent enough as we've seen him do every week, I think then it's really just going to be out for fun for all those drivers. But if something happens to him, then never know. Maybe Henderson or both outside chance to maybe steal that number 1 seed. But otherwise, yeah, most of these drivers are all that are locked in. Really not much to battle for other than just a checkered flag, some bragging rights, and maybe some momentum heading into the playoffs.
Well, it will be really interesting to see how it all plays out. We may see another fuel strategy race when we get to Auto Club next week. Who knows? We were treated to one here tonight at Phoenix as Hunter Madalinas takes the Arizona 170 under the lights at the Phoenix Raceway. We thank you all for joining us here tonight. Be sure to tune in next Tuesday evening as we'll be covering the regular season finale at Auto Club to set the championship 10 drivers in the chase for the Great Lakes Truck Series Championship. For our producer, Jeff Johnson, Ross Brockman, I'm Seth Cole. Thanks for spending your Tuesday night with us. We'll see you guys next week at Auto Club as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of Split Second Broadcasting.